Hello friends, welcome to Hook to Knot. Today I'm going to demonstrate how to make these lovely socks. For making these socks, take any two contrasting colors of yarn and a 3.5 mm crochet hook. Make a magic ring and 15 DC in the magic ring. Slip stitch after 15 DC to the third loop of the chain. 15 DCs are done. Now I'll slip stitch into the third loop of the chain and my first line is done. Now again chain 3, DC in the same base and 2 DC on each loop. So this will give me 30 DC in total. Now we will slip stitch into the first DC. Second line is complete. Now chain 3, DC in the same place, 1 DC in the next, 2 DC in the next, 1 DC in the next. So this round we will continue 2 1 2 1 and slip stitch at the end. Third line is complete. Now we have 45 DC in the circle. Now next two lines will be no increase, 45 DC on 45 DC, two more lines. I will slip stitch into the first DC, and this is how our socks will look after first 5 lines. I have pulled out the yarn out of this loop, but I am not going to cut the yarn. Now I'll take the next color and attach it. While attaching, I always prefer to use the second end of the loop. So I'll pull up the loop, use the tail of the yarn, and then I'll make 3 chains. 1 2 3. Now in the next loop I'll make 3 DC into one loop. 1 2 and 3. In the next loop only 1 DC. So see how it will look. 1 DC, 3 DC into next, 1 DC. Now I'll leave 2 chains and repeat the same. 1 2. So 1 DC, 3 DC into next chain, 1 2 3, 1 DC into next. Again I'll leave next 2 chains, 1 DC, 3 DC into next, 1 2 3 and 1 DC into next. This is how our line looks now. 1 DC, 3 DC into next, 1 DC, leave 2 loops, 2 chains, again 1 DC, 3 DC into next, 1 DC, leave 2 loops, likewise continue till the end of the row. After doing the last DC cluster, I will slip stitch into the first DC and complete the round. Now again I'll do one more slip stitch, pull up a loop and pull out the thread completely. Do not cut this color. Now we'll pull up a loop from, see, from this DC cluster I'm going to pull up from this number 3 DC. So pull up a loop, chain 1, SC in the same. I'll do 2 chains, directly go into the second DC, single crochet, front post double crochet on the next, and single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, front post double crochet on the mid or the central DC, and then single crochet. Chain 2, SC on the DC2 of the next cluster, front post double crochet on the central, and now I will slip stitch into the third one, or where we started. Again I'll pull up the thread, but I will not cut it. See, I'm keeping both the threads, I'm not cutting anything. Now we'll pull up the color 2. Pull up a loop, chain 3, 4 more DC in the same chain 2 space, so total of 5 DCs. Directly jump to next chain 2 space, again 5 more DC. So this row will be doing 5 DC with color B into each chain space. See, this is how it looks. After completing this line, I am going to slip stitch into first DC. Slip stitch into next stitch and pull up the yarn, take out from the loop, but do not cut it. Next line is again main color, pull up a loop, chain 1, SC into same, front post double crochet in the central one, SC into next, chain 2, go to the next cluster, on DC number 2 single crochet, front post double crochet on DC 3, single crochet on DC 4, chain 2, go to next cluster, same design continue. Chain 2 and slip stitch into where we started, this SC. Again I'll make the loop big, pull up the yarn, but I will not cut it. Next line would be with color B, chain 3 and 5 DC into each chain 2 space. We'll continue with this design till we do 6 lines with color B. This is the third line we are doing. I'll meet you after the 6 lines. After completing 6 lines with color B, I have done my one line with color A, which is creating two chain spaces. But now we will not be continuing with color B. We will cut the yarn and leave around 4 inches for weaving in ends. So next line I'll do with color A only. So chain 3, 5 DC in the chain space, 3, 4, 5. There are 2 chain spaces left. Now we'll do DC on this single crochet from the previous line and one more DC on the front post double crochet. Now we are not going to fill these spaces by DC, and this will be our opening for our feet to put in. Now chain 3, turn your work, DC on DC. We will do 10 lines like this. We are done with 9 lines. The 10th would be the last line. So chain 3, turn your work and continue doing DC on DC. We have total 39 DC in the row. We are done with 10 lines. Now I'll turn the socks inside out, and what I will do is stitch these 2 edges together with line of single crochet. Now the joining is done. I'll take a last loop. Cut the yarn and leave at least 4 inches yarn so that I can weave in nicely. After cutting the yarn, I'll reverse the socks. This is how the socks will look after you join the heel portion of it. Now to give the strength, I will do 1 line of single crochet around this leg opening. So I will join the yarn at the back of the sock or near the joining. 1 line of single crochet. So what I'll do is, in each DC space I'll put 2 single crochets. In each DC space 2 single crochets. This is what I'm going to do all around. Now we are at the end of this SC line, and I will join or slip stitch into the first SC that we have created. I'll pull over the loop, leave some yarn for finishing and cut the yarn. This is how it will look after one line of SC. Now I will take yarn color B and join near the back joint of the heel. I always take my first stitch with the other end or the short end of the yarn. Now I'll make one chain, skip one and make one SC. I'll make 3 chains and make a picot. For picot stitch, what I'm doing is putting my hook through the chain space and making one SC. Now chain 1, skip 1, make one SC, chain 3, picot stitch, chain 1, skip 1, SC, chain 3, picot stitch, chain 1, skip 1, SC. So this is how the edging will look. I will complete the edging all around. This is how the edging looks, and now I'll cut the yarn and weave in all the ends. If you want to make smaller size of socks, I will not suggest that you change the number of stitches. I will suggest that you take one size small hook. So I have done it with 3.5 mm hook. With 3 mm hook, it will be this small. Just showing you the proportion. So if you want to make bigger one, use one size bigger hook. If you want to make small, just use one size small hook. Our pair of socks is ready. Thank you for watching this video.